afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second iteration of the ISPA Marketplace series, a series designed to showcase the products and services on offer from our ISPA partners. We have 13 partners from across the hardware and software services sector who provide different products and services for UK ISPs to help them provide an overall better network. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by three of our partners. We've got Mark Downey, Head of Sales in North Europe and Africa at EPS Global. We've got Doug McCullen, who's VP of Sales in the EMEA from Zinier. And we've got Micah Gold-Utting, who's Sales Director at global CX supplier RouteThis. To kick off today's presentations by introducing Mark Downey. Mark is the head of sales, as said before, in North Europe and Africa for EPS. EPS support customers in the service provider sector, data center sector, and the enterprise space with open disaggregated networks. Their bare metal hardware systems and open software help improve ISPs' efficiencies on a global scale. Today, he says to talk about how we can help ISPs set themselves up for success in an increasingly competitive and difficult market landscape.
Thanks, Chris. Get me set up here. You can see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. As Chris said, I'm going to talk about open disaggregated networking. That's for the introduction. My name is Mark Downey. I'm head of sales for EMEA, covering Northern Europe and Africa. And I've gotten a little bit of help today from Barry McGinley as well. He's our senior systems engineer for EMEA, and he supports our teams throughout Europe and myself with customers in the UK. So we'll start with just giving a little bit about EPS Global. EPS Global, we are a global value add distributor. What that means is we have 28 locations globally in 16 different countries. So we try and set up close to our customers, and we give them local language and customer support services in those regions. And we're 21 years in business this year. As part of that, stock and availability goes hand in hand with being a distributor. So we have distribution hubs throughout the globe for EMEA. Ours is based in Dublin, and that looks after the whole of EMEA, and we hold stock and of all our products in that location, so we can get it out next day delivery to most parts of Europe. And we build some sourcing and logistics for customers in that location as well. Like I said, we're a value add distributor, so as part of that, we have a pre-sales team who support us. And the idea of that is that we talk to our customers, and we like to speak to them from early on and see how we can help them build their solutions, see what their needs and wants are, and talk to them on a technical level. So going from proof of concepts, getting them up and running, holding their hand through that process into pilots, and then wider deployments in their network. So we get heavily involved on that side. And we're an authorized distributor. So that means that we are an actual distributor for a lot of the vendors we work with. Two come to mind are Finisar, who are OEM manufacturer of optical transceivers. And we also work with EdgeCore, which I'll give a little more detail on later on. They are an ODM manufacturer of switches and routers in that space. So as I said, I'm going to talk about open networking. So I'm just going to take a kind of high level approach from here for people who mightn't be familiar with it. Open networking or disaggregated networking is different to what you normally might be used to. And the major difference here is that you separate out the hardware and the software in this space. And that gives you a more flexible, cost-effective approach to building a solution in this space. So on the hardware side, as one example, we are a partner for EdgeCore globally. Now, EdgeCore are part of the Acton group. Acton are an ODM, original design manufacturer house, and they build switches and routers for a lot of the big vendors that you would know in this space. And as part of that, they have a company called EdgeCore, and they build switches and routers as well with an EdgeCore badge on the front. These are bare metal switches. They come with an ONI bootloader, so that means they have no operating system on them when they arrive with us. but they are the latest chipset. Silicon is in them, and they have switches from 1 gig right up to 400 gig and a wide choice within that. On the other side, then, we work with software vendors, and we've a couple of examples in there, IP Infusion and Pika 8. So there's a big variety of software vendors on that side, and who you use and what you go with depends on what you need in your network. We're doing a lot of deployments with IP Infusion throughout the globe, but IP Infusion have kind of specialized and honed in on the area of telco, ISP service providers. So we deploy that widely. Pika 8 is another software vendor who operates in this space, and they do a bit more around the campus network space. There's also Sonic. Sonic is Microsoft Azure's software, and they open source that, but there's also commercial versions of that is available for the data center. And we have one called Sonic Express by EPS Global. So, I mean, where we fit into all this is that you have the hardware vendors on one side, where you've got the bare metal switches, and you got a choice of software vendors on the other side. And when we speak to our customers, we give them a choice from both sides, and then as they move along in the process, we try and bring them together into one solution. So an edge core router with IP Infusion, for example, sitting on top. We'll load the software, we'll provision it, we'll test it, we'll ship it out to you, ready to slide into a rack. So, I mean, the takeaway from that is the flexibility, cost effectiveness that comes along with that. I might repeat myself a little here, but just some of the benefits of open disaggregated networking is the main one is no vendor lock-in. So it's freedom of choice in that space, and you get best in class vendors who are innovating the industry. There's as I said, with edge core on the hardware side, you get the latest silicon chipsets within that. And there's the marketplace brings a lot of the software vendors in this space who specialize in particular areas that might suit the needs of your company and network. Cost savings, by decoupling and separating out the hardware and the software, it promotes more competition in the market and gives operators freedom and choice to pick the best products which are specific to their needs and budgets. Flexibility and scalability, so you can select hardware components based on your specific requirements. It allows you to scale out in smaller increments and expand as you grow. A lot of customers we've started with was 2s and 4 units to start off with, put them in their network, got them working, and now we're deploying them at scale with some of the larger players in it as well. So we work with people at both ends of the scale as regards size. And product bundles from EPS, as I mentioned earlier on, open networking is great. It gives you the choice, gives you all the benefits, but when you make a decision, that's where we come in, and we want to help take any of the pain points out of that. So it's hassle-free, consolidated shipments of open networking bundles. We load the NOS, we test it, we provision it, we ship it out to you. In some cases, we provide optics, cables, whatever. So when it arrives on your desk, it's ready to slide into a rack, and you've got all the components you need to make that work. I'm just going to go through a couple of use case success stories. So Netomia, who are based in the UK, they're one of the fastest growing full fiber network operators in the UK. We did a case study on them, which you can get your hands on as well. But as a part of that, they explained some of the requirements, and it was to bring gigabit capable broadband to 1 million customers, build out a scalable and adaptable full fiber network, highly efficient, fault tolerant network, and effective network deployment at a lower cost, which is always an important factor. And when we did this and deployed it, we spoke to them afterwards, and the feedback was that it was a rapid deployment, delivering reliable, high quality, high speed internet. The speed to market was fast for them as well, so it led them to innovate in their customer service side. There was seamless network expansion capabilities, and they used OCNOS, which is IP Infusion software, sitting on edge core. So they built out a layer 2 aggregation with migration capabilities to Ethernet VPN. And most importantly, it was an improved total cost of ownership. So they were happy with all of that. One other quick one is Metalink. They're based in the US. They're one of the top 20 independent ISPs in North America. They are a large upstream connection to the internet for their clients. They needed a cost-effective solution. They needed to ensure reliability, performance, service uptime, and they had a pretty aggressive timescale of 3 months to deploy their network from start to finish. Again, the feedback there was EdgeCore network switch. They used EdgeCore network switches. They found them cheaper, more flexible than the legacy vendors that they'd looked at. They were easy to configure and support. And again, they used OCNOS by IP Infusion, and they could handle BGP, MPLS, along with delivering layer 2 VPN. And again, to underline the fact it was improved total cost of ownership for them. So there are 2 examples, 2 use cases that we have out there that we're deploying at scale with. Just a quick look at the map, and this is some examples of the customers we have. I mentioned that a couple of them: NEC, NTT, Tencent, Digi in Romania, Vodafone, EMEA. We work with all of these actively. Some of them are deploying network equipment. Some of them we also do data center interconnect and optical equipment through Finisar. So we're working with all of these either on the optical or the networking side. And that's just a quick snapshot of the type of customers we work with. So, like I said, the hardware vendors have a solution for everyone, and they go from the data center right through to access, and they cover everything in between. So we put together a short, quick 5-minute video talking a little bit more detail about the hardware side and what we can offer there, and show you the choice available. So I'll just play that now.
So I hope you're enjoying the Marketplace by ISPA. So the image is on the screen there, and I'm going to run you through some of the products that EdgeCore have in this area. So these are all open bare metal devices. So if we move over here, this is a 100 gig data center switch, the 7726. But they also have 5 different SKUs for 1 gig. And we have copper and fiber for 10 gig. We have multiple 25 gig, a lot of different 100 gig boxes, and then 400 gig boxes available now. Software wise, we actually have a new product out at the moment called Sonic Express by EPS Global. So that would be Sonic on the box and arrives in your data center ready to slide into a rack. But we also have other commercial versions of Sonic. So Sonic, for anyone who doesn't know, is Microsoft Azure's operating system, which they open sourced. And now there's commercial versions available. So there's commercial versions from EdgeCore and Broadcom. Then we also have OCNOS from IP Infusion, and we have Picos from Pico 8. So there's a lot of selection and choice on the NOS side when it comes to the data center market. It has been going since about 2010, and all the hyperscaler guys have already done it. So this has been going for quite some time. So moving across to Backbone. So this is the first open packet transponder. So EdgeCore built this and designed it with the Telecom Infra project. And what we actually have is we've 1600 gig ports, client-side ports, and then we have 8 line-side modules here. So these can be 100 gig, 200 gig, and 400 gig coming. And the idea is modularity, that when you move from 100 gig, you basically slide out this module and slide in your 200 gig module. And here we have the coherent optic, and we can get these from Lumentum, Finisar, Fujitsu, and there's lots of guys building them at the moment. So the price is starting to come down. On the software side, there is an open operating system, and we also have OCNOS from IP Infusion on the Cassini. So moving across to our aggregation, again, we've lots of variety and choice here. This specific box has 22 100 gig ports on it, 4 400 gig ports, and 2 of those 400 gig ports can take the ZR optics, 400 gig ZR optics. We also have some 25 gig ports here. So this is the 7946, and this has actually been deployed at scale with an ISP in the UK. There are other choices on the aggregation side. Obviously, we can pull some of this section into aggregation, but just on the specific aggregation models from EdgeCore, we have 10 gig. So it'd be a full range of 10 gig. So 5912, 5916. We can add to that MaxSec with the 5916XM. We can add in an external TCAM chip for quick lookups with the 5916 XKS. I think there's 4 or 5 different models of the 10 gig variety. This is our 100 gig variety, and there's more coming. There's more 400 gig. On the software side, with this specific box, we're deploying OCNOS by IP Infusion in the UK with an ISP, as I mentioned. So moving across to access. So what we have here, we have a full range of products on the open side, which is surprising. Like, we've open access points. But down here, we have a 1 gig switch. This can work with this. So this can work within the data center as well as your management switch. But we have our full range, maybe 5 boxes of the 1 gig. So this is the 4610 54p as PoE. And to link in with that, we have our access points. And these are open access points. And by that, I mean the software on the boxes actually comes from a project within the Telecom Infra project within TIP. And there's also a cloud controller SDK. So you can connect in to your own controller, or you could EdgeCore have their own controller. There's like IgniteNet have their own controller. There's lots and lots of open source controllers out there. So you can pick and choose what suits you and what functionality you actually really need. So we have a full range of APs, Wi-Fi 6 APs, outdoor APs. This is our OAP 100. This is an EAP 102, but we've 101, 102, and you can get them non-TIP as well. So you can get them with a normal operating system on top. But if you're looking for an open way of doing stuff, EdgeCore are the guys to go to. Below here, we have another access product, and this is our disaggregated cell site router. So this has been a massive success globally. I think AT&T are deploying 80,000 of these, and we've been deploying these all over Europe, all over Africa for the last 2 or 3 years. So EdgeCore have 6 or 7 models of the cell site router, and they come in all different port counts, and that's kind of the idea about it. This one itself is the 731626XB, and it's primarily 25 gig ports. But if you want a smaller, if you only need 1 and 10 gig, we have the 591518X, which is primarily 1 and 10 gig ports, or we can go up to the 30X, which actually has 400 gig ports on it. So it's the selection of port counts which is important here. Also as well, it is, you can see by the size, it's temperature hardened, goes up to about 75 degrees. So it's been obviously a really good product to work in Africa outside of data centers, but it's temperature hardened, and size wise, it'll fit in street cabinets. So as I said, on software, we have multiple options. Again, there are some open source options, and we have primarily, we've been deploying Oknos from IP Infusion, and there's Exaware as well. So this is our range. As I said, there's lots of more other devices. We've lots of more data center devices, lots of more aggregation devices, and lots of devices on the enterprise side. We also have a full range of OLTs on the access side from guys like RouteThis and DZS. So if you want to have a chat about this, any of the hardware, I'll actually be over at the next business summit with ISPA, and we can have a chat then. So enjoy the rest of the marketplace. So I hope you're enjoying the marketplace.
Apologies.
So I hope you're...
Thanks to Barry for that, for preparing that one earlier. Just one last slide. So we prepared a lot of information for our customers, and we have a podcast called The Critical Lowdown that's available through where you get all your podcasts. And you can find links to it on our website. And we do unboxing videos as well, where I go into a bit more detail on the individual switches, routers, and components that we sell as well. That is all available through our website and on our YouTube channel. Okay, thanks for taking the time to join us here today. Hope you found that useful.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. I don't know whether anyone necessarily has any questions in the chat for Mark, but if not, I'm sure you can reach out to him. I'm sure Mark will be happy for me to share his contact details with anyone that wants to get in touch at the end of the video and have a conversation with him. But in the sake of time, I think it's time to move on to our next presenter today, who is Doug. So I'd like to say thanks, Mark, and pass on to Doug. Doug is the VP of Sales in the EMEA for Zinier. Zinier is the leading provider of field optimization services globally. Their software solutions help optimize and automate field service for ISPs, helping them both implement infrastructure growth and also maintain that critical infrastructure once it's been built. So without further ado, I'd like to pass on to Doug. I think he's got an interesting presentation for us today, some good case examples. So yeah, Doug, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Chris, and thanks to everybody who has joined us on this sunny afternoon, at least where I am. I'm Doug, and I'm here to talk to you about my favorite topic, which is field service management. Obviously, with a fiber rollout. Field service is absolutely at the core of delivering on the fiber promise. So I've been in the software industry for many years with a few different startups, but I suppose field service had me at hello, and I've been working in this industry for a better part of 15 years now, I'd say. And I lead our European growth team based just north of London, although it might not sound that way from my accent. So Zinier is a global company with a UK operation, and we've had the UK operation going for about 3 years now. We provide a field service management platform that helps service providers manage all service delivery capabilities in their company, and that would be across the field and back office, but also in close coordination with the end customer receiving the service. And although we work in several industries, we have our sweet spot is really in telecoms and fiber to the home. We're primarily focused in those areas, and you can see that in our solution. We reflect the workflows and use cases that are right out of telecoms. But before I get into any more about who we are, how about if we talk about you for a second? I've stolen a couple graphics from Think Broadband. They do some good stuff, and so thanks to them for this. But we're really scaling up. The rollout is scaling up at a rate of knots. And again, I've been working in the industry for a while, as I mentioned, but I have to admit I've rarely seen, if at all, such a demand for skilled resources come all at once. And so there has been good progress. It shows that we're prepared as a country to take on such a challenge, to replace all copper networks by 2025 with fiber. But the signs are encouraging. We won't be too far off, let's say, compared to things like smart reader rollout, for example, which is still happening across the country. So it's a unusual phenomenon, let's say, to be able to see such a almost like greenfield scale up like we're doing here. But with that, of course, comes challenges, and the challenge really, from a field service perspective, is how can you keep up with it all? This chart sort of says it all, but we have to really ramp up operations, all of the ISPs and the wholesalers. And with the shortage of skilled engineers, there's a big challenge in keeping up the pace and hitting your rollout targets, making your field force as productive as possible, as quickly as possible, and also trying to retain these skilled workers too. So not only the going through months of trying to hire all the right people, but how do you actually keep them on board? Because in such a lucrative market, it's quite easy to lose skilled resources to another company like yourselves. So this is a massive ramp up to manage. And field service is complex. I'm not sure how many on the call are involved in your field operations, but you probably hear about them every day, regardless of where you are in the business. It's not just about hiring retention. With so many variables in the field, and these are just some of these that I've listed here, the challenges are almost endless, and they change every day. I won't go into all of these, you'll be thankful to know, but let's say just in the service delivery, just showing up at an engineer just shows up at the right house or building, that by itself isn't even straightforward, because they might the addresses might not even be in mapping databases and such. And then you get there and you find that the fiber hasn't been dropped, or you don't have the right parts in your van, or tools, or you require civil works to be done in order to complete the installations. Before you know it, you've spent 30 minutes on site and you haven't done anything productive. So it's a very complex situation that an engineer faces, and then the back office also in support of the engineers in the field. And this is an interesting statistic, but 40% of field service engineers day is filled with non-value added activities, which again, almost plays to the retention angle, in that engineers like to do engineering, let's say. They like to do installations. They like to be with their customers. They like to be, getting on with the work that that they're paid to do. But there is a lot of there are a lot of things that get in the way. And with all the technologies that are available today, how can this? You wonder how this can still be the case. And this is the challenge that Zinier spotted, I think, about 5 years ago. Was that we felt that the field engineers or field resources were being underserved, and so we set out building our platform to try to put paid to that. So I'm going to show a brief video here as well, just a minute and a half, something like that, to just give you a kind of a quick overview of who Zinier is. And forgive the background music. I don't think it's banjos, so we're lucky for that. But
field service is a scramble. You create tasks, assign technicians, track down spare parts. Change is a constant, if unwelcome, companion. Technicians show up late or not at all. Projects fall behind. Assets break down without warning. You try to stay on top of it all, but it's hard when everything has to be done manually. Zinier is field service automated. We help you work smarter and faster by increasing visibility into the field, automating manual processes, and freeing your teams to focus on what matters most. Our dispatch console gives you real-time visibility into the status of each task and technician, helping you optimize schedules and respond quickly to changes in the field. If a task needs to be reassigned, it's as simple as clicking a button. In the field, we help technicians work faster with step-by-step mobile workflows, real-time work verification, and automatically generated closeout packages. Every missed task, every minute of downtime matters, which is why Zinier exists. We help you transform your operations so you can solve problems faster, fix things the first time, and deliver better service. With Zinier.
okay, there we go. Micah, thank you for telling me you were seeing the presenter view. Hopefully now you're seeing just the slides. So appreciate that. That's
field service.
Go to the next slide here. So the challenge with connecting customers and what Zinier can do for you. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mentioned the scarce labor resources available, and one of the things that Zinier does is we're trying to actually enable operators to upskill less experienced engineers. So we build guided workflows that justify basically the cost of more experienced labor by providing them with increased productivity. So you might have to pay more for engineers to get experienced people, but we're trying to make them more productive in that time and have them focus less on administration. We also are trying to address the productivity issue and improve your productivity. And this is something that we do through better allocation of work to engineers and better monitoring of in-day performance. So we do automated scheduling, which effectively takes all the jobs that an engineer has to do in a day and routes the engineer to those jobs in a way that reduces their travel time. And also, once they get on site, what we're trying to do then is guide them through the job so that they're focusing on the things that they need to focus on rather than, performing, let's say, administrative tasks along the way. Next, and I mentioned before about high operational complexity. And again, this is Zinier. Everything in Zinier is built along workflows. We have out-of-the-box workflows that effectively take an engineer or any part of the organization, back office workflows, and take them through the tasks that need to be done in a way that, again, it's structured so that there isn't any guesswork, that we try to maintain workflows that make you more efficient and that tasks are done in a kind of more repetitive way. We all know about auto comp and compensation for poor or late service. And one of the things that Zinier does is that we can spot when there are jeopardy conditions. Let's say engineers are running late and they might miss the appointments, and then we can notify planners to effectively be able to change or reassign work. And we do that automatically. So rather than having the planners try to figure out who is the best engineer to take the work on, we sort of figure that out for them, and they just push a button and the work is then reassigned. And last but not least, of course, it's a competitive market. There's a little bit of overlap there, but it's still highly competitive. So the things that actually would differentiate service providers are things that we're trying to provide in our platform as well. So what we're trying to do is keep the customer informed and engaged through the installation process. So communicating with them from the off, letting them know what stage the installation is at, allowing them to reschedule, and effectively making sure that the job gets completed first time rather than having to go and do repeat visits. Some of the things I think we could say to think about when you're selecting a field service management platform, and these are things that I think differentiate Zinier from maybe some of the other players in the market, is that we are purpose-built for telecom. So we have, as I said, pre-built workflows, checklists, mobile capability that means that it's kind of built around fiber to the home installation. So two-stage installations, pre-work, and then having the pre-work follow with CPE installation. So these are all things that we're very familiar with. Network assurance, so keeping the network running, and any other service delivery. We are a flexible platform as a service. So a big differentiator for us is that because we're a no-code, low-code platform, it means that we can very quickly configure and build new applications on the platform that give you maximum flexibility when you're basically, once the system goes live, being able to evolve it from there. And again, because we're all workflow driven, we can deliver projects and have them stood up in a matter of just weeks. So it's not like, I guess, the old days where field service or other things other solutions might take 6 months, a year, something like that. We can actually get things up and running in 6 to 8 weeks initially even, which means that then you can start to bed the system in, understand what you need to do differently, and adapt the system from there as you learn more. We're fortunate to be able to, we're a well-funded company, and we're fortunate to have some good backers. I think the most important thing is the fact that through their investment, we as a company are seeing a lot of growth right now. And our customer base is kind of characterized by a mix of, let's say, companies who might be scaling up, but also large enterprises as well. Not just in telco, we do work in other industry verticals, which sometimes means that we learn some good practices that we can put into the core of our product. But for instance, the solution that we provide for Community Fiber in the UK for their installation is it's the same platform as we're providing for Virgin in 3 different parts of their business. So the wholesale, the consumer, and the networks area. And I guess the main thing is that when people implement Zinier, there is a results and let's say return on investment that you'll see very quickly come out of this, sometimes in a matter of months, and which allows you to pay back the solution in a very short period of time. So we're built for, as I said, built for fiber. We have offerings that, again, can take you from just the beginning. Maybe you have a handful of engineers, 25, 30, 50, but then you're scaling very quickly. You're going to be at 100 in a year's time. And again, the same platform that we're providing for large enterprise customers is one that scale-ups can use. And maybe they're just using a little bit less of it, but it's the same technology and the same, let's say, level of business benefit that you can get from the solution. So we have a few different offerings that will be appropriate for whatever size company you have. And I'll just finish with this. We like to say, that I guess a mantra of ours is that the journey only begins when you go live. Back to the story about solutions taking months and months to go live and then start to deliver a benefit. Again, Zinier is built on this platform approach that allows you to achieve benefit, receive benefit very, very quickly, but then not stand still. So when new use cases come up, when you need to change your field operation, whether that be your internal one or contractors, then we can make the changes very quickly, or in fact, you yourselves can using our platform. So with that, I'd like to thank you and just say that, if there's any of this that resonates, my email address is here. I will be at the summit, the ISPA Business Summit, in a couple of weeks. So if you happen to be there, please do stop by our booth.
Thanks, Doug. I'm just going to put it out there. If there's any questions in the chat, or if you've got anything, feel free to send it along. I'm just going to have one. I've got one quick question for you, Doug, just before we pass on to Micah, and that is just sort of when looking at sort of field service optimization, sort of what are the factors that ISPs should consider if they're going to justify the expense for a product that Zinier provides?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple things, parts of this. One is that there's benefits that you'll get out of the let's say the optimization that the solution could do. So by that I mean that, again, reducing travel time for engineers means that an engineer can complete more jobs in a day, for instance. So you don't have to hire as many in the end. But another part that we're focusing more and more on now is on planning tools. So the ability to plan out who you need, how many engineers you need to have in a certain area of the country, the ability to shift those resources around if you're working, let's say you're building out in a certain region and you need to use people from another area, the ability to very easily move them across. So we're focused more on the planning area, and I think that also again helps you scale up, hire the right engineers, get them in the right place, and then be able to plan your business better.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense to me. Well, thank you very much for your time, Doug. It's much appreciated. And I think just in the sake of time, moving on to Micah. So Micah's the sales director at RouteThis, a leading provider of CX solutions, which is customer experience solutions for those that don't know. And they work with ISPs globally. RouteThis helps ISPs forge better in-home experience, helping providers mitigate churn, which is very apt in the current market, with the UK market moving to a sort of a one-touch switching model in the next few months or year. And today he wants to focus on a small part of that, which is exceeding customer expectations at the point of installation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Micah, and keen to hear insights of RouteThis, or RouteThis, because I remember you are a US company and do pronounce it like that.
Yeah, accommodate all kinds of pronunciations. Thank you so much for having me today. So I'm really excited to be here presenting. Thanks so much, Mark and Doug, for kicking us off. I think there's a couple of really interesting themes from Mark and Doug's presentations that we can actually carry through into this one today. So I know Mark talked a lot about the importance of flexibility and not being locked into a single vendor. And that's something that I really want to talk about how we can support on that as well from a software perspective. And then frankly, I think Doug's presentation was a great lead into this one, because Doug spoke a lot about how we can set up the field team to be successful. And what we're going to talk about in this presentation today is how once they get in the home and once they've pulled that fiber and they've kind of done the bulk of the job from a time perspective, how can we get that last little bit right to make sure that the customer's expectations are really blown away. Before we get into that though, a little bit of a background on us if you're not familiar with RouteThis or RouteThis. We've been around for over 7 years now. We actually came up in the smart home space. And what we were doing in that domain was supporting customers who really were delivering internet connected devices into the home, but had no visibility into that home environment. So what we developed were solutions that allowed customers who were struggling to understand what the challenges were with Wi-Fi to be able to troubleshoot those issues. Now, obviously, that has a lot of application for the service provider space. So about 6 years ago, when we moved over to supporting service providers as well, we were able to allow service providers to deliver that kind of consumer grade experience that you would see with something like an Amazon or a Facebook, and have those kinds of journeys for their customers. So on the back of that, we have over 120 customers delivering these solutions. And just a little bit like on the funding side, I like to call it that we're supported by Intel. So we get some really interesting insights there in terms of when you look at your cameras or your computers or whatever devices in your home are consuming internet, why they might not be connecting and where the frustration for the customer is really coming from. And I know Doug talked a little bit about ROI. It's something that we're really proud of as well. And our customers always do really in-depth ROI studies. And we've delivered over $240 million back into the pockets of those partners. So again, another solution that can very readily pay for itself. So why do we exist and why are we tackling this space? I think, this was something that we were just talking about in terms of the competition that is coming up, right? A couple of years ago, people generally only had one way to connect to the internet. And more, not only are we seeing different access technologies become available, but especially in the UK market, we're seeing fiber overbuilding fiber, where customers have a lot of different options in terms of how they're going to get internet to their homes. And frankly, from a service line perspective, most of those are going to be sufficient for the jobs they need, right? Most technologies now are delivering enough speed to the customer's premise. So how then do we differentiate our service and not just make it a race to the bottom on price? And what we're seeing is more and more, it's all about the customer experience. People don't really understand how the internet works, and the Wi-Fi environment has become synonymous with internet for the vast majority of people. When the internet goes down, people don't say, the internet's down, they say the Wi-Fi is down. And they're going to say that if a single device doesn't connect to their router from a remote part of the home, even if the internet service itself is rock solid. And when we're talking with our fiber provider partners, that's especially true because the access technology is so robust, and the vast majority of issues really come down to the customer's understanding of the home environment. And where a couple of years ago, you could get away with saying, well, we don't support that. That's just not the case anymore because of the customer's ability to, instead of picking up and calling you, picking up and calling one of your competitors to switch over. So it's really become the responsibility of the service provider to make sure that the customer, no matter what device they're using, if they turn it on, they're going to get a great flow of internet. And the service providers who do that successfully are the ones that are winning. So how do we support that reality? We're actually quite different from most other people who are trying to tackle the in-home experience because we are completely hardware agnostic. And this goes back to what Mark was talking about having that flexibility. As opposed to giving you vendor flexibility in terms of, hey, you can choose from this hardware or this hardware, we actually take a fully software approach that requires absolutely no hardware to be placed in the customer's home. So there's no requirement for you to roll out any specific devices. And there's no requirement for you to install anything on the devices that you've already put in customers' homes. Instead, what we do is we actually leverage the devices that people are already having in their homes, whether that's the customers or the technicians, And largely that's going to be their cell phone, right? Because the cell phone's a trusted device on the network, we can use that as our probe to essentially suck up tons of diagnostic information about what's going on in the home and then process it. And that's where it then feeds into our cloud platform. That's really the brains of everything that RouteThis does. So we have a solution that takes all of this diagnostic information, processes it, and then pushes out insights so that people can actually leverage the data that they're getting. You know, a couple of years ago, people were starving for data and we didn't really have any information on what was going on. And again, as we look at how things have evolved, now we're all swimming in data, but it's very hard to leverage that. And what our system does is actually digest all of that information and then presents it in different customer journeys, workflows, as Doug was calling them, to really simplify that data and allow you to accomplish specific tasks with step-by-step instructions. So we support a number of these different journeys. The one we're going to talk a bit more about today is the field services side in terms of the installation, but we also have self-service. So a customer has a Wi-Fi issue, or an internet issue, they pick up their phone, they go into your app, they click, I'm having a problem, and the app will actually tell them what the problem is and step-by-step instructions on how to fix it. And then similarly, we have step-by-step tools for agents so that your tier 1 support, who typically struggles with understanding all of the diagnostic information that's there, can actually have step-by-step instructions for if someone calls in, this is actually what the issue is in your home environment, and this is how to fix it. So if anyone's interested in those two solutions, happy to talk more about those separately, and feel free to reach out to me. So today we're going to talk about what we kind of call our RouteThis certified product. And this is a installation tool for technicians that supports the entire in-home portion of the installation. So once you've done all of your great scheduling with Zinier, you show up at the house, you pull the fiber, everything's set up, and then you go into the home and you certify to set up that home environment and make sure that the Wi-Fi component of the install is delivering against the quality of the fiber that you've run. The reason why we focus on this part of the customer journey is because we think this is a really critical piece of getting your customers up and running. Really, it's their first experience with the product that you guys are offering. And at that moment, everyone has a bit of a different perspective on what they want to occur. At the end of the day, as the service provider, you want the customer to be happy, but you also want them to have the highest ARPU available and also the appropriate package for what their needs are. And then as well as that, you want the lowest cost to serve long-term. So you don't want a technician that has to return to fix something, and we don't want to have a lot of support costs afterwards. Additionally, we want the customer to be, happy and stay with us for a long time, obviously. The technician also wants a happy customer, but there's a bit of a different tension there, right? We're looking at all of the metrics that we've been talking about today that the technician needs to hit in terms of time on site, number of jobs done. So while they want a happy customer, they want to get in and out. They want it to be easy. They don't want to have to spend a lot of time talking to the customer. They want the tools to get the job done efficiently, and they don't have to be arguing with someone that's taking up a lot of extra time and delaying their ability to complete their task. And then the customer similarly wants everything to just work, as we've talked about. They want to, frankly, not have to think much about their internet. They want the technician to come in, do the job, and leave. But they often also have opinions about how they want the job done. I think we've all heard tons of scenarios where the customer is pushing back on the technician because they don't like where something's placed or they don't like the way that something looks. So the customer wants the installation experience to go the way that they want it to go, and that can be at odds with some of these other pieces. So there's some tension that exists in the installation, even though at the end of the day, everyone just wants it to go smoothly and work. So what are the kind of scenarios here that we're trying to address, right? We can think about the scenario where a customer needs mesh and they don't want it because they feel like maybe with their previous provider, they had one router and they don't think they need more than that. Maybe they don't want to spend the cost of additional beacons. So you get pushback from the customer, even though the technician knows that for this customer to have a great experience, they need a mesh solution in the home. Another scenario is, everything looks like it should work fine, but there's a mysterious Wi-Fi blocker in the house, and the technician's going to leave that site, and then the customer's going to be calling in or complaining or churning because they're not getting the performance that they expect. Another good example is where the router isn't placed in a central location, and we need to find a way to increase the coverage in the home, either by moving it or adding mesh. even though the customer is saying, I don't like the way that looks, or they're pushing back on us. So how do we address kind of like this tension that's happening? The way the RouteThis certified product works is that when the technician shows up at the home, it actually connects in with a GIS mapping solution to automatically pull the footprint of the home, the square footage, and the shape. And what we're going to do is create a projection that shows what the mesh environment needs to look like in that home to get sufficient coverage. And something that's baked into the entire solution, and that really kind of sets us apart from anything else on the market, is that customer education and that hand-in-hand experience with the technician is centralized. And what I mean by that is, for example, you can see a toggle in that screen there that says show pod signal. A technician can go to the customer and toggle off the mesh environment and say, if you don't want the whole home Wi-Fi solution, or you don't want the additional beacon, this is what it's going to look like in your home, and you're going to be giving up coverage in this parts of your home. Are you okay with that? So it's a collaborative way to make sure that customers are on board with the solution being installed. And then also that technicians know how to set up the home environment to make sure that there's coverage throughout the home. When we then have surprise blockers in the home, we actually have the technician walk through the home, and very quickly, and the system's set up to do this very efficiently, so you don't have to run like a full speed test in lots of locations. But as the technician walks through the home, it's going to map the environment and essentially guarantee that you're going to get the speeds you're looking for in each different room of the home. And if there is an issue, and you can see on the last screen here, we'll flag as red any problems with different environments so that the technician can then go back and have a conversation with the customer about what needs to be changed. At the end of this entire process, what ends up happening is we get a Wi-Fi birth certificate. And a lot of the customers that we work with have some kinds of certificating or installation checklist tools, but what's often missing is this kind of handshake at the end that says, everything's been set up correctly, this is how everything's been set up, and we're all in agreement that the installation was done the right way. So that if downstream there are any questions, we all have a good record of what was set up initially. And on the back of this, we see really fantastic results, right? So we're seeing a huge reduction in return engineer visits, as many as 25 fewer return visits. The big one that I think is really impressive is the 20% increase in mesh adoption. This is a unique scenario where not only are we increasing the ARPU of our customers, but we're also doing it in a way that we're seeing increases in NPS. And I think it's fairly rare that we're seeing solutions that are getting our customers to spend more money while making them happier. And that's kind of a sweet spot for this kind of approach. And then the last piece is the reduction in churn, and that's demonstrated reduction in churn from customers that have been rolling out the solution. So pretty significant reduction in the early life churn as well. So if people are interested in learning more about how we're kind of addressing the in-home part of the installation, my information's on there. There's some nifty QR code if you want to scan it. I'm happy to talk more about this or any of the other solutions that we deploy.
Perfect. Thanks, Micah. I suppose I've got one question for you just to kick things off. Just in terms of in the UK, obviously we're new to sort of the FTTP, and the take-up's starting to take up now. But a lot of customers in the UK tend to be a little bit nervous, especially when dealing with Wi-Fi solutions. How does your systems help negate that nervousness and sort of empower the customers to deal with the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of that nervousness comes from a lack of understanding, right? Like most customers don't really understand how Wi-Fi works. And the education components that are built in really help explain why the technician is doing what they're doing. And the same is true for our agent tooling, right? We're very focused on the shared experience of up-leveling the customers so that the customer has a great experience from day one, and also doesn't have downstream negative consequences because they kind of understand why things are the way they are. On top of that, I think one of the things that is somewhat unique to the UK market, but frankly we see everywhere, is that when people are coming from incumbents, they aren't used to this kind of customer-centric approach. So it's such a huge difference when you can put something in their hands that teaches them about how their internet works and sets their expectations correctly, that customers are grateful for it, right? Like this is an opportunity to say like, hey, we're different than the other guy, and really kind of follow through on that promise.
Yeah, and have you seen that? Because obviously the North American market's just a bit more advanced than the UK market at the moment in terms of that customer experience. Have you seen that sort of transition to having a more educated customer and a customer that's more engaged with managing their own Wi-Fi service?
For sure. And when we run like NPS surveys and that kind of thing after this, like the feedback is universally like, I've never had anything like this before. These guys are completely different from, it's very similar where people have the same kind of frustrations with the large incumbents in the US. And the feedback from the customers kind of validates the piece that I was saying earlier, right? They're saying like, this is new, this is different. This does feel like what I get from my doorbell or my home security system, where it feels like it's made for the consumer.
Yeah, no, makes total sense there. And I think with that answer, Micah, we're just about out of time. So I'd like to thank you for sharing your thoughts today. Really useful, and I'm sure if you're interested in speaking to Micah about RouteThis and how they could help you as an ISP, feel free to reach out. Just as a quick note from me, I know Doug and Mark will both be at the ISP Business Summit, and I'd encourage any of the ISPA members to join us for the day. We've got 4 panels, 150 senior stakeholders, and it should be a very interesting day. Networking and a good time to catch up with some old peers across some drinks towards the end of the day. But I'd just like to say thank you very much for attending today, and I hope to catch you on the next edition of the ISPA Marketplace. Thanks very much.